Okay, so before anything else, a little bit of house cleaning. Due to recent changes to this platform, I feel like I have to bring this little detail up. My channel is and always has been meant for young adult to an adult audience. Just because I review something called Precure doesn't mean I can't provide any proper analysis or essays with vocabulary that would likely go over the heads of most children. In fact, this franchise itself has always meant to have a wide-reaching audience, as my analytics can attest. I also tend to make some more PG jokes, nothing explicit, but if any kids do find my videos, I do discourage them from watching them, or at the very least, they should invite their parents to watch with them. So far, thankfully, none of these changes have affected this channel in any way, so for the time being, I think I'll just make my videos as I normally do. I just thought I'd make this, plus that new buffer you just saw, just to clarify everything. That's all I really have to say, so let's just get right into the review.
このロケットは新作映画未知との遭遇度で使用する
By any chance, is it also going to come a new attraction at Galaxy's Edge? Because they really need it. We open this week with the show's real main heroine getting ready for and eventually hanging out for her usual day of school, agreeing the best and the worst her class had to offer. However, following up from last week, we also had the paranoid daddy camping outside the school. Mr. Kaguya, I think you should turn down your dramatic whoosh just a skosh. Sure enough, he followed the girls after school and stumbled upon their big pink rocket. Luckily, P.P. Abraham was conveniently just there to provide them with yet another cover story. Yes, they would later explain he was there to discuss the Twinkle imagination, but still, that was impeccable timing there. Regardless, Mr. Kaguya wasn't completely sold, as his men had been picking up on their recent activities. Uni managed to drive him away by pointing out how their radar shouldn't have picked up on anything. She knew this for a fact because she had a very plot-convenient ring that could scramble any radar detections within her immediate vicinity. That's pretty much this whole show in a nutshell, Yuri. Of course, Mr. Kaguya wasn't going to let his recent findings go to waste, and he confronted Sakurako about it. This led to the next day, when the word had spread throughout their class, making things more than a little awkward. Well, maybe things aren't all that bad if it shuts this kid up. But yeah, for lack of a better term, everyone started to alienate Lala, forcing her in a nice subtle bit of symbolism to go back to her old debris handling days. Naturally, Hikaru confronted everyone, asking why they were suddenly treating her like Eren Yeager after his big reveal, to which Sakurako began listing off all of the weird stuff that had been going on throughout this series from some of the earliest episodes to just last week. And from what Mr. Kaguya told her, she believed that Lala was the cause of all of it through stuff like abductions of both her and Karonori. She even went as far to say that Hikaru was being brainwashed by her, all of this unfortunately within earshot of Lala. Goes without saying, this is some dramatic stuff, and I gotta say right now, I'm not 100% sold on all of it. Honestly, this is great stuff, it's just that tonally it doesn't quite match up with everything else in this series. I mean, obviously, most of us knew what this was building up to, essentially confirmation about what Capard had said back in the Halloween episode, that everyone would betray her once they learned the truth. But let's for a minute also consider what else happened in that episode, in particular regarding Karonori and Sakurako, the two characters who have been pretty much leading this whole anti-Lala brigade. We really didn't see them exhibit that much concern about the weird stuff that was going on around them, or in the episodes that they brought up for that matter. And yet now they're showing concern here? I mean, maybe I'm overthinking this, but the way they act here, you'd think they were suffering from PTSD or something. It's kind of like Mr. Kaguya's dramatic whoosh at the beginning of this episode. It's sudden and not exactly called for. As always, I try to understand what the writers are going for. This particular episode was written by the head writer Isao Murayama, and as always, it does have some great moments, like here in the library, with Lala suffering from a cultural crisis depicted much better than what we got last week with Elena. Hell, at least we're actually seeing someone suffering from a sort of racism, or at least profiling. I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of wishing that the episodes not written by Murayama could match up a little better with great stuff like this. Back in the classroom, for whatever reason, after all of that, Karanori started doubting the existence of aliens, leading into a predictable punchline. For God's sakes, Karanori, your comedic timing there was totally off. You have to make a smooth transition into the punchline. Obviously, the villain of the week couldn't be anyone besides Gepard, who after peeking into everyone's imagination, basically said,
I hate to tell you I told you so, but I told you so!
Lala disagreed with Baldy, pointing out all of the times they were able to bond and understand each other. Though of course, Gepard pointed out that wasn't the case now. You know, I've heard rumors that the next series is going to have a green lead. I'm not going to call her the first green lead because it's clear that Lala has set that precedent. Madoka soon joined in, along with warping in Elena and Uni, who once again I've kind of forgot were a part of this team, and they all transformed behind their real leader. And once again, the fight this week was at least above average, as it at least played out like a decent highlight reel. In the middle of all of this, Lala managed to win back her classmates' trust, leaving Gepard with no warped imaginations to feed off of, for a minute, as he quickly found a new victim. He got a decent looking weapon out of him, though I do have to kind of feel bad for Mr. Kaguya, as he's gotten kind of the Shinpachi treatment, as this does kind of turn his character into just a pair of glasses. Then again, spectacles are kind of a thing when it comes to Ken Narita characters. You know, I just realized this guy looks a lot like his character. After stealing Atalanta's MP, Gepard thought he had won, but Lala still had one great moment left in her episode, as after having everyone accept her for who she is, be it as an Earthling, a Precure, or even as a Samanian, she was going to return the favor 10 times over. With that, she awoke her Twinkle imagination in the most awesome way possible, and really, I kind of wish she had just defeated Gepard on her own here. But nope, gotta prop up that great Fua cult, am I right? Well, with that, they managed to save Mr. Kaguya and the entire class covered for Lala. Madoka provided the final closing words, as well as a hook for her own episode next week. Thus, the episode ended with the entire class, especially Karanori, apologizing to Lala and touching her balls.
Good night, everybody!
In spite of some of my misgivings, this was definitely one of the better episodes of this latter half of the series, and easily the best Twinkle Imagination episode we've gotten so far, and probably will get. And if anything else, at least Lala is great. I speak with 100% honesty when I say Lala is the true main character, which doesn't bode well for Hikaru, but that's a subject for another day. Throughout the series, she's gotten the lion's share of development, as we've seen her go from the overly by-the-books pragmatist to a well-balanced individual, and more importantly, in this episode, a true Precure. While again, I wasn't totally sold on the whole class just turning on her, I will admit, it was a great setup for a true test of heroism for Lala. While it certainly could be argued whether or not they deserve to be rescued, that doesn't matter to true heroes. What matters is that they needed to be rescued. Lala understood the weight of her responsibilities both as a Precure and as a student of Class 2-3 at Mihoshi Middle School. That understanding alone puts her above all of her teammates at this point, and will likely keep her at the top until the end of this series. All that said, I do wish they could have spread this whole everyone turning against her plot a little more evenly. Perhaps they could have had some brief scenes of Mr. Kaguya revealing some of his early findings to Sakurako and Karanori in earlier episodes, slowly building up their paranoia before dropping this bombshell. On that note, this dude really needs to ask more questions, though I will save my judgment on that for next week. But other than that, and everything having to do with Karanori, this was Lala's star-making episode, and I couldn't be happy for our little green alien. I'm about 75% done with the Doki Doki Precure movie reviews, so hopefully it should be up later this week. And if I ever need to make a case that this franchise is not entirely meant for kids, I think this movie could make for a good exhibit. And until then though, for now my friends, and I think I should probably get this looked at.